Okay, you're a infrared guy. I've been shooting infrared now for 8 years plus, and let me tell you, the way that Capture One handles infrared files is real good. But I'm not going to say any. I'm not going to say anything because I just want to say in the next maybe 3-4 years, I told you so. I told you so.
No. I actually have been making sessions just to sometimes just to process and Capture One, because there are certain things that I do like better flipping as a smart object between Lightroom and Photoshop. But there are other ones where actually for portraits, I've been loving infrared and Capture One better.
Yeah, Steve, if you go to my Spicyjello YouTube channel, there is a video that Peter and I made on editing infrared with Capture One. And I think you'll find that it's
not very good.
Well, my part is pretty good.
Your part's great.
I could have just edited you out.
I know.
No.
It's like, can you be the dumbass on the infrared thing for me? I go, yeah, sure, I'll do it.
Nah, it's all
but
right.
I look, I hate to say this, but Troy, you were correct, and I don't like changes.
I know it hurts you.
It does. It extremely hurts me. But it's like, oh man, you're right.
Okay, so let's out of the group, I know some of you are already using Capture One, and I know some of you are kind of new at it. One of the things that we were talking about with Amy at the TWiP member mixer and a couple other members was kind of like just the initial onboarding, like how to get started, and how I organize my files behind the scenes. So whether you use whether you use catalogs or sessions, it really doesn't matter. For me, what I do is all my files live in one location. So for example, like I have a demo folder here that says demos, and I put all of my files in there that I want to be playing with and manipulating. Under my jobs, for example, though, I have imaging main, I have 2019 shoots, and then I have a list of all my clients. And then inside there is where I keep all of their assets. So that's where all their files go. And then I have some subfolders in there that I will access. If I move files around, like these are sloppies, or these go on the line, or these go into Zenfolio galleries or whatever. But pretty much all the files come in here, and I only work from here. So whether you import them into a catalog or you browse to them with sessions, your files should pretty much just stay in the same place. There are some exceptions later for organizing and things, but for the most part, everything just stays there. So let me get...
That speaks to a large part of Steve's question last night, I think.
Yeah, some of the organization. So
yeah.
Now, because I can see you guys, everybody's got video on except James, but how many of you guys need the database management? How important is that to see how that works versus just getting in and editing? You guys can...
For me, I've never used Capture One. I've been thinking about getting it, but I don't know if I do need to get it versus just using Lightroom. So just understanding everything for me is important.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm also up on the...
Okay.
I'd be down for learning about the database.
Okay. Well, just kind of from the very, very beginning, if you open Capture One, normally it opens you up into a catalog. I'm just going to go in here and say new catalog, and we'll just call it test. And I'll say okay. So this is pretty much what you're going to be faced with when you first launch in. I'll try to overlap them so you don't get too many similar windows. Now, there's two ways to get images into a catalog. Now, the advantages of a catalog are that you can create smart albums and you can do keyword searches across all of your files, okay? Now, I've found that Capture One is a little weaker in that than Lightroom, so if you have a huge library and you're constantly going in and doing definitive searches because of your catalog, I would say there's a way that you can mix the two. I haven't had any problem with that, so I don't see that the data management or the asset management is a big contender for me. I think Capture One can handle that. So, I'm just going to gloss over that. So if you want to get images into here, literally it starts right in the beginning. You just come in, you're going to choose a folder where you want to bring them in from. There it goes. It's going to browse. I could go to, say, Spicyjello. I could go to... I have way too many things, so it should be...
So Troy, can this be on your external Drobo? Can it be? It could be anywhere that there's a photo sitting on a hard drive.
Yeah, like my imaging main is a Drobo, and for some reason it doesn't like me right now.
Yeah.
But you could literally browse to wherever those files are and just literally import them, and I'll show you. So like if I go to my Dropbox, I go to Spicyjello, I go to demo images, and say I want to bring in some images from the Frederick Van Johnson's S1. I say open. It's going to show me what the files look like. I have some options to back up. You guys can look at that stuff. It's not super complicated. I can import.
Troy,
them.
are you using the same folders that you use with Photo Mechanic?
So, no. Photo Mechanic, my calling process all happens before they land on my hard drive. Before the files go home, they've already been sorted, called, delete the bad ones, and then the ones that hit my hard drive are that go into my catalog are kind of my finals, my keepers.
Okay, thanks.
So now you can see over here on the right is a folder system, and there's my two files right down there at the bottom. Actually, you can see there's the files. So now that's how you get them in with a catalog. Again, the advantages of a catalog is if you like to do a lot of keywording and searching and tagging and it helps you find your files that way, then definitely go with a catalog.
So what happens if say you got it out of your Drobo and you then move to Drobo and you click on it? Does Capture One say, hey, that file is now missing and you need to tell me where the real place is?
Yeah, so let me go in here, show finder. So let's just say that I moved this folder or I renamed it.
Yep.
Okay. This is exactly the same thing that happens in Lightroom, so this will be familiar. You get a little asterisk, right click, locate, and I just literally have to go back, drive all the way back to wherever that is. There it is, Spicyjello. I should have had a shorter path, that's definitely for sure.
No, but it's good to see.
And I could say open,
and then
it finds it. Okay. The other thing is too is let's say, and this is catalog specific, okay, and this is kind of important. So let's say that I put another image in that folder. Okay, so I move that into the folder we have in our catalog. It's still only showing 3. Right click, synchronize. It'll go in, find that one missing file, and then import it. The difference between Lightroom and Capture One is Lightroom will search all of the folders that are within the root folder. Capture One will not do that. Capture One will only search the folder that you said to import into Capture One. And this is a distinction for those of us that came from Lightroom because we were so used to, say, going to demo images, right-clicking, synchronize, and basically everything that existed in there would update. It does not work that way in Capture One, and I'll show you what it does. And this just comes down to like making your brain happy that you know where your files are. So if I take this image of Margie, right, and I move it into what's going to be the root of the demo images, if I right-click on demo images and say synchronize, it will not find it because I never told Capture One to include demo images as a watch folder or imported. But if you right click, add folder, and then I select demo images and I say add, now I can right click and say synchronize. Nope, I have to import the file. This is just a weird caveat of the way Capture One works. So now if I add this file, it'll import it.
So could you see going without using catalogs ever and just using sessions?
Well, I use them both. And I really think that one of the organizational advantages of Capture One is the ability to use both. And I wish I could get my laptop to show up here, but it's not as easy. Is I use catalogs on my laptop because that's where all my fine art stuff is. And I want to go in and I want to do a search for all my 5-star fire portfolio images. And I like that. However, you can do that manually in Sessions. And I'm kind of finding that I'm less happy with a catalog because catalogs require databases. Databases require being connected to those files. And I'm kind of going a little bit more old school now, where I'm taking my images and I'm just dragging them into subfolders or folders, duplicating them and organizing them in a sort of an old-fashioned way. Because one of the later updates that I had at Lightroom before I left, they updated it and it crashed my database, and I lost all my virtual folders anyway. And I was like, okay, this sucks. So that's just for me. Doesn't necessarily have to be that way.
So you have a catastrophic failure, meaning like in Lightroom, I know I have the XMP. I can essentially still have my edits with XMP.
Oh,
Right.
the sidecar file.
Yeah. But what you don't have is you don't have your virtual albums that you created. You don't have your smart albums that you created. You don't have any of that organizational stuff that you did within Lightroom, which is so brilliant because it's virtual, right? But when I lost my database file, because it's in one single file, and yes, you can back it up and restore it, and that didn't work for me for many reasons, but I lost all those organizational features. So it really comes down to what's comfortable for you, right?
So if you're a beginner like I was 6 weeks ago, the Sessions thing is a no-brainer. You just start, and then all I just keep doing is clicking open and start and just keep going on it. Download files, play with it, use it.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you're a starter, this is the way to start. Okay.
And
So what is like the high level difference between like catalogs and Sessions?
Well, that's what I'm going to show you right now. So you kind of saw catalogs, and those of you that come from Lightroom, you live in a catalog. Your whole life is in a catalog. You have to import everything. You have a single database file that manages it, but it's all a catalog. Sessions is very, very different in that you can see here's my file system, right? So what I literally do in Sessions is you go file, new session. When you create it, it's going to ask you to create it. Keep an eye on this path because I don't know where it goes in Windows. There's a default location, but on a Mac, it's under Pictures. And it will create a folder called Sessions. And let me go in there and I'll show you where that's at. You guys should be able to see that. And here is, I don't know, I'm sure you guys found it first. There it is, Pictures. And then here's a folder called Sessions I created so I can demo Lightroom 12 stuff. But here's my image comp main, my imaging main sessions, and then here's my demo sessions. I put them in folders. Literally, this is what you have in there. And this would be the file that you run, you double click on to launch the session. Capture One remembers that last session anyway, but it's all in a single solitary file right there. Now, the difference of Sessions, and this is where I suggest everybody start from, okay, is that when you open up a session, all you have to do is go over to the Browsing tab, which is the folder, and literally browse through your files to where those files live.
Now, Troy, sorry to interrupt. Okay, you gave me your specs for this, and everything's on the right-hand side, which is the same as Lightroom. When you open up Capture One for the first time, is that stuff on the left-hand side?
No, that's a good point. I can't see. Let me show you.
Because making it look and act and behave like Lightroom was a big deal.
So this is
Peter. There's a command. Sorry, Troy. There's a command just says place tools right in Capture One, and it just puts everything on the right side.
Well, it's actually better than that.
There's better one. Yeah, migration.
Yeah, it's called migration. Yeah. And what it does is it sort of tries to make it look like Lightroom. That's kind of where I started. I can give you guys this desktop because I created my own. Nice. If you wanna match it.
Yeah, that's good.
Migration is nice because it doesn't just put it on the right. It collects things sort of in the way that Lightroom thinks about it. So
yeah.
If you're used to that, it's a very nice way to interact with.
That is good.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's a very good point, Amy. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
And then just to speak to the layout, make sure that you right click at the top and you click on customize toolbar. There's so many tools in here that aren't up there by default. I think, it gives you an opportunity to customize that for yourself. For me, the way that I laid it out is I really wanted to be able to do the copy and paste, save presets, undo things, and run my batches, which I can show you. But again, back to sessions, literally, if you're running Lightroom right now, and I have a Lightroom library, let me go into my image comp, my IC stuff. So I still run Lightroom when I have to, if I have clients that I have to go way back for. But like if I go back, like, okay, so like image archives, like we'll go back to like 2016. None of these files were ever processed in Capture One. They were only processed in Lightroom. But I can go back and I can go and hit these files. Let's see, there are probably some in there. And there they are. Now, I'm going to have to re-edit them because it's not going to migrate over my Lightroom settings just by browsing to the folder. But I'm okay with that. I mean, I can go in and I can play with them too. So these two can coexist. Sessions and Lightroom can coexist pretty happily.
So other than color tags, because it brings the color tags over from Lightroom, does it bring any, if you change the name and did anything else to it, does that bring it over? Because I know that it brings over the color tags from Lightroom.
Yeah, I mean, if you change the file name, you can bring keywords will also come over.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
But what you have to do in Capture One is under Preferences. Where is it? It's under. I'll have to find it. It's under Image. Oh, you want to auto sync sidecar files to full sync.
Mm-hmm.
And what that will do is, and this just gets messy, and I would suggest you don't do it unless you understand sidecar files really well. But anything you change in another application like Photo Mechanic or even Lightroom into that sidecar file, things like color tags, keywords, those things will synchronize, which is nice. So if you've keyworded your image, say in Photo Mechanic, when you open them up in Capture One under a session or a catalog, your keywords will appear here.
Okay, cool.
Which is nice because you can do searches by keywords, you can make smart collections by keywords, you can do all that kind of stuff.
And so you're not actually like importing the images directly into the session or anything like that. You're just browsing them on the file system essentially?
Yes. Okay. You just browse to them. And so then what happens is, and I'll show you, I keep bringing this folder up. What you'll notice is that you'll get this little subfolder called Capture One, and in there is where it builds your settings for each file and your basically your cache files, right? Like your thumbnails and things like that. And for me, that's super important because it allows me to know that if I'm backing up this folder, I'm actually backing up all my settings as well.
Yeah.
I'm not reliant on a database.
Yeah.
And I actually spent a significant amount of time. Oh, hang on.
Well, you spent a significant amount of time with me too. Remember, we lost that external drive when we couldn't find out where the Lightroom settings were, and everything from 2015 older got deleted.
So if those cache and settings files go away, do you lose all your adjustments that you've done on those particular images in that folder?
Yes.
In Capture One?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Here's one little trick too I use in Lightroom. You can drag on the slider in Lightroom. I don't know if y'all know this, but you can drag the image on the slider, in the viewer panels of Lightroom, and drag them onto the Capture One icon, and it'll open that image in that folder.
Yep.
In Capture One.
Yes. Yeah, you can drag and open, which is one of the other things I was going to show you is a quick way to get.
I'm sorry, I didn't use that.
No, it's fine. No, it's fine. No, it's great. There's actually an import option, and I'm beta testing the new Capture One, but there is an import option from Lightroom, and it does a pretty decent job of bringing your images in and trying to discern what your settings might be. But I wouldn't rely on that, right? Like I just decided that when I switched over, I'm just going to re-edit everything. And that's fine because that's good practice.
Well, I'm using Capture One because I like the colors and sharpening and all that stuff.
The last couple of sessions I created, when it asked me like, you know, what I wanted to import, I was under the impression that I had to like copy or move my images over, you know, into some location. And now that I'm seeing that you can just kind of edit in place my ideas, I use like Google Drive a lot for delivering files. And so I could essentially create the session folder there, do all my edits with where they are on my main drive, and then just have the exports folder so that I can send a shareable link. Cool.
Yeah, very good. And that reminded me, I need to pause this synchronizing because I do the same thing with Dropbox because all these are sitting in Dropbox. One of the things that you'll notice in sessions is they have these folders already created under session folders: capture, selects, output, and trash. That was really designed. My understanding was because for tethering. So when you tether, your images automatically land in the capture folder. You move them to your selects folder. It's just part of their workflow. I completely ignore them. I don't use them for anything. So.
Okay, sorry, quick question then on that sessions folder. How do you delete all the pictures in there in the trash folder?
You just right click and say empty trash. I think you got to be under the trash folder.
Yeah, right click.
I don't know.
No,
why do
sorry.
Well, yeah, it says
there it is.
Session trash. Empty trash in there.
Okay, got it. Okay,
so Troy, back to that. Can I ask a question? Quick question.
Of course. This is all for you, Amy.
Yeah. That's a lot of stress. A lot of pressure.
So because I'm used to Bridge, I just organize all my photos in Bridge. I don't use whatever you guys use, photo, whatever that is.
Mechanic.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I can just use that file structure that I've created in Bridge and just use it, and then use it, look at it from Capture One.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and that's why, that's one of the reasons that the Capture One, they've made it, I think, a little bit, the onboarding process is a little complicated with catalogs and importing and all that kind of stuff. Like literally create a session and just browse to wherever your folders currently live. You keep your same organizational system, your same naming system. You don't even have to use any of that stuff in Capture One. Just browse to it, land there, and be like, oh, there's my images. Now I'm going to start playing.
This might be a game changer.
You can actually start a session from anywhere without even opening Capture One. You can go to wherever your photos are, right click, and do set as capture folder or output or whatever. But like when I start a session, I'll copy my images from the card to wherever they're going to live, right click, set as capture folder. It'll give me the option to make a new session, and I just name it and it opens up a new session right there.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and there is a lot of very, very deep what would I say, Easter eggs, if you will, in Capture One that I'm not even aware of all of them. So, you know, it's interesting to dive in. One of the things I was going to show you is if you have a complicated filing system like I do, I have many, many, many folders, they're very deep, and sometimes I don't know, navigating them in a single column in Capture One is very frustrating. So a lot of times I'll navigate to my folder like what Joshua was saying, but what I do is I like grab the folder and I drag it and drop it onto Capture One. Now it looks like it's going to put it in between these two images. It's not. It's literally just going to browse to there. And if you can see on the lower right now, it went to my imaging main, my 2017 shoots. It went to David and JD, and it opened up that folder. So I didn't even have to like try to navigate through that right-hand column, which you can see for me is just a gargantuan mess. It's huge.
So thinking about like with these sessions, like if you also had the this folder imported into like your catalog and you make some edits in the session, are those going to be reflected in the, when you view them in the catalog?
I've never I'm going to say no, but no, because sessions have to be imported into the catalog in order for the settings to transfer over. So
okay.
one of the big workflows,
I wasn't sure if it was smart enough to pick up like the sidecar file or something like that.
It doesn't take them from the settings aren't in the sidecar
well,
file.
That's
though.
true. Yeah.
Yeah, the settings are somewhere else.
Okay.
I mean, it'd be worth testing. I'm going to say no, because you have to import your sessions into your catalog, and it literally ingests, if you will, all of the settings in the files and everything.
And it doesn't like keep it in sync. That's more like a one-time process.
Correct.
Okay.
Now, sessions are really great for, let's say you're using a Cam Ranger or some third-party software and you're dumping files into a folder. On sessions, you just literally point it to that folder, and as files pop in, it just keeps showing up in your browser because it's live. But one of the workflows that a lot of people use is they'll go out, they'll do a shoot, and then they'll shoot it as a session, edit on their laptop, get it all dialed in, finish it, whatever, and then they move it to their main system in a catalog that is more robust, maybe bigger hard drive, right? So that they can, search through it later, which is very viable, but you can do that.
That holds appeal for me.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. I love your shirt, by the way, Bruce. Amazing shirt you've got there. It's one of my F64 shirts.
Was Capture One intended to replace Lightroom and Photoshop?
Well, I would say that it's not intended to replace it, but it can certainly replace it in a big way. To go back, Capture One was out before Lightroom.
Yes, that's correct.
And it's been around a long time.
It was out years before Lightroom was.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Lightroom is simple ish. I see Lightroom as kind of like a butter knife, and I see Capture One kind of as a scalpel. When you get into some of the editing and the ability to do masking and color retention and things like that, which I'm going to show you, Lightroom just doesn't do those things. But
if you don't know that Lightroom, if you're just an average kind of photographer guy and you think Lightroom's fantastic, then you're fine. But if you want to up your level a little bit and do better and have more control, then you've got to go to the next level, and at least there's an option to go to Capture One.
Yeah. Okay. It's the image quality and the fidelity that I really liked.
Yeah.
There's also another point, sorry, Troy, that's very obvious between Lightroom and Capture One. And I've spoken about this in some of our member mixers in the past, but when Frederick was asking some questions about it way back when. But if you guys pull up shadows using the sliders in Lightroom to recover shadow detail or pull down highlights, you'll very quickly find that the file falls apart, and the contrast profile and the tonal profile starts to fall apart to mushy grays.
Yeah.
Stuff just looks like shit.
Yeah. Well, that and the Luma tool and the shadow recovery is the best. The best.
Yes. And I don't know, the guys at Capture One have been doing this longer than Adobe have, and they're really smart. And they figured out a way for you to recover shadows and pull down highlights without the tonal profile turning to mushy grays. And it's freaking brilliant.
Yeah, it's nice.
Really good in that respect.
So Amy, where are we at on your question list? How are we doing?
Sorry, had to unmute. No, that's great. We can move on.
Okay, so that helps you with your.
It's already 2:30, so yeah.
Dude, I'm all day.
We got till 6 o'clock. We're good.
I'm just worried about Thanos. He looks a little grumpy down there, so I want to keep moving.
Might snap his finger.
Yeah. Don't snap your finger, Thanos.
Oh God, no, he did.
Oh no.
Does Capture One accept Luminar as an add-on?
So Capture One can export to Luminar and other applications. What I have found, though, is that going into Luminar, for example, it can be a little bit grumpy. So if you right-click on your thumbnail and you say Open With or Edit With, and you can choose any other applications you want, it works 90% of the time. For some reason, when it goes into Luminar, it never brings it back into Capture One, so it doesn't round trip very well, and I don't like that. So what I mean by round tripping is, let's say I take this image and I want to put clouds in it, right? So if I right click and I say Edit With, oh, now I broke the whole Edit With. Let me go to Applications.
So while Troy's doing that, Steve, I basically go into Photoshop because I always go into Photoshop from Capture One, like stripping out color contamination, whatever, make things really neutral, whatever. And I go into Luminar from there, and it's easier to round trip from Luminar back to Photoshop. So that's kind of my workflow. It works for me. It's a bit more seamless than trying to do it with Capture One.
Yeah, so what we're going to do is now we're going to go into Photoshop.
So you just did edit with Photoshop, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
Edit
it
with
exports
Photoshop.
as a TIFF.
Yeah, it exports it as a TIFF, and apparently I'm not logged in, so I got to log in.
I was about to say, for the past couple of weeks, one of the things that Apple and Adobe had been making me angry about was trying to edit from Lightroom as a smart object in Photoshop. And Catalina kept breaking that like every other day.
Yeah, I mean, you know, every time we do software updates, it's always frustrating. So, all right.
Catalina has been a special case.
Sign out.
It's been a format.
Okay, there you go. Jeez, 3 computers and 2 licenses. I mean, like, frustrating. So what I would do from here is I would go to Filter, I would go to Skyloom, I would go to Luminar. And this shows you how it round trips as well, so just kind of like a bit of a workflow. And this is exactly how I work, whether I go into Photoshop and I want to clone something out, or I'm going to come into Luminar and I'm going to add clouds. So let me go in here, sky replacement. Oh yeah, let me select. And Joshua has just added a gargantuan amount of new clouds to our cloud bank. So I'll pick that one. Ooh, that looks completely real. Holy crap, that actually looks pretty damn good.
Man, and look, he's got a dust spot in there as well. It looks fantastic.
I know.
Look at that. Oh my God, look at that.
So now what I do when I hit apply, normally what would happen is if you were to go from Capture One to Luminar, Luminar is going to want me to export it as a finished file, and then I got to re-import it back into Capture One because it doesn't round trip very well. So what this is going to do is it's going to bring it into Photoshop, where I'm still working on the same image. I'm just literally going to hit Command S, which is, you know, save, right, and Command W, and then we'll go back into Capture One, and there's my file sitting right next to my original. So the round trip is very, very seamless into Photoshop. So any plugins or anything I do, I just do it straight from Photoshop.
Would you say if you're going to shoot tethered, or if you're moving towards shooting tethered, that Capture One is preferred? He's definitely shaking his head.
Yeah,
is preferred over Lightroom because I.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Really? Because I have not shot tethered. Have any of you guys? I assume most of you guys probably have used the Nikon equivalent. What is it? Capture Pro 4 or whatever it is.
Yeah,
you know?
It's slow and turdly.
So the origin of the name Sessions came about because Capture One was originally developed to shoot tethered in a very professional studio or controlled context. And so Sessions was basically your session shooting in the studio and in taking those images as you shot them on your computer and then looking at them on your laptop or computer in studio. So that's where the name originated from. Yeah. And Capture One frickin' rocks shooting tethered. If you look at all the leading pros like that do architecture or real estate, or Jeff Totaro or some of the guys from Pro EDU,
it's worth.
They're all using Capture One and shooting tethered, and it rocks. So
yeah, I mean, I know commercial photographers that prefer the data management in other software that they're using, and not Lightroom, but other software, and they literally buy Capture One just to tether.
That's correct.
Only to tether.
That's correct.
Because it's that good, it's that solid. So that's
Lightroom at its bare bones is cumbersome shooting tethered.
I actually can't get my Z camera to connect to Lightroom. I tested it because I shot that fire shot that you saw on Tim's Hangout. I shot that tethered. I thought, what the heck? I'm gonna see if Lightroom will work, and then it didn't. It wouldn't connect. And then Capture One, I plug it in. There it is. There's my live view. I'm focusing through Capture One. I'm taking shots. Boom! It's popping up. I'm checking it out. It applies my styles. I was happy. So
okay, so it sounds like if because I kind of like the idea of Luminar, but I haven't bought it yet because I'm trying to figure out where I need to be. So it sounds like you could go ahead and get Luminar, put it into Lightroom as a plugin, but shooting tethered sounds like Capture One is where you want to be.
You can't do the color. You can't do the kind of color editing, control over color editing, or skin tones in Luminar or Lightroom or Photoshop that you can do in Capture One, or recovery of highlights and shadows.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So Capture One, just to give a little bit of background around the company, they have professional color scientists that work on getting the film profiles exactly right, optimized for every camera, for every lens, for every film profile, exactly right. That's all that guy does.
Wow.
And if you, Frederick posted a really good interview this week with Pratik, the retoucher, who's awesome and a really nice guy. And he's got in Pro EDU, he's got an Introduction to Capture One course. And he shows you side by side an image edited in Lightroom and Photoshop, and then Capture One. And it's a professional, it's like, Wayne John's type of, world-class fashion shoot kind of thing, where the control over skin tones and the lighting is really has to be first class. And the way that Capture One renders skin tones and colors, in my opinion, I'm sure Troy, because he does effectively the same thing as a wedding photographer, there's no contests. Capture One is superior, no question, for color and for skin tone rendering.
So as I begin to be a little bit more aware of Capture One, then it has its own editing tools like Photoshop and Lightroom.
Yeah, and
Yes.
here's the thing: is when it comes to software, you use the software that gets the job done. There is no piece of software that's going to make a bad photo or a bad photographer better. It's a tool that you have to apply to your work to get an image out that you like. For me, I'm able to squeeze out of an image more with Capture One for the vision that I have. And that's why it's important to me. It doesn't mean that anybody needs to use it. I mean, I love the software, but I think what's important is that you focus on your ability to capture, you focus on your ability to understand light, you focus on your understanding of your camera gear, and then worry about software after that, because all of that happens next.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to software, I would say start with your main editing software, whether it's Lightroom or Capture One. Start there, master that, and then add software on that does specific things for you that you need. So if you shoot real estate and you find like, oh, I need to drop clouds in all the time, well, hey, Luminar is the bomb for that. Let's do that. As opposed to thinking that Luminar or Capture One or Lightroom or whoever is somehow going to help you squeeze more out of your images than what you're getting. It can help, but it's that last 1% that it's getting for me, not the majority of the image, right? So it's really easy for all of us to geek out on software, but in reality, this is just part of my workflow, like a lens. That's it. It's just the final. So let me show you some editing things that Capture One does that I find to be really quite amazing. One of those is being able to do color toning based on your highlights and shadows. Now you can do this kind of stuff in Capture One. in Lightroom, and I'm going to mix those two up the whole time. You can do this in Lightroom as well, but I find that Capture One's controls are quite a bit more solid. And really what's going to happen is, let me get to my color editor. And this is the basic panel. So this is very similar to the HSL panel that you have in Lightroom. Grab the little tool right here. If I drag up or down, it's going to increase the lightness. If I drag left and right, it's going to increase the hue. And if I hold down, I think it's Shift or Command. I don't know which one it is.
It's Alt in Windows.
Is it? Wait, yeah, it's Alt. Yeah. So if I hold down the Alt or Option key, then what it'll do is it'll change the saturation. So I use this so much on like images like this. I come in, I click, I drag left, and I turn that blue sky a little bit more cyan like I like, and I'm done. I can move on. So some of those workflows things are really cool. The other really powerful thing is the layers that exist in Capture One, and I think that aside from anything else and everything else, the ability to work with these layers and luminosity masking are why Capture One was my choice. And this is how this can work for you. So for example, I can click on that yellow color in the leaf, and it selected that color. I can come up under the options under color editor and say create mask from selection. So it'll create that mask. If I go back to my editing tab and I go look at my layer, if I hit M, you can see what the mask is. Now there's a little bit of yellow in that background, which I can very easily just go in and erase if I want. No, my tool is, let me turn the flow up. There we go. So I could erase that if I want, but I don't think it's going to affect it very much. Now the nice thing is that whatever I apply to my exposure is going to be affecting that layer mask. And that is really important to be able to select colors and separate them out, because, for example, let's see, like on this image right here, this guy right here, I can select luminosity and colors out of this that I affect directly. So this is where the scalpel is. In Lightroom, you can put a pin or a like a point, and you can change color based on that, but it's not based on luminosity in the range that I have. And in Capture One, you have all the controls on that layer. So if I create a new layer, and let's say I draw a gradient, like a linear gradient just across the top. So like I'm going to grab that up there. If I want to warm that up or make it colder, it's going to affect the mountains. I don't want it to affect the mountains. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick the Luma range, and I'm going to say clip out. We'll turn on the mask so you can see that. I'm going to say clip out all the shadows. So only grab my highlights. So we'll turn the mask off now, hit apply. Did I do it? I think I did.
This is what's so powerful about Capture One.
Yeah. So now I'm only affecting the highlights in that image. I'm not affecting the shadows, or barely, right? Same thing applies. I can create another mask. I can grab my paintbrush. So let's say I want to affect just the top of this building right here. Now I know that I just painted a mask all over that. And let me turn up my opacity so the flow is higher. There we go. Now, normally, you would have to be very intricate about grabbing that rooftop, but I'll turn on the mask again with M, go to Luma range, and I'll clip out everything around it. So now I've grabbed just the roof, and let me let that finish. Turn off my mask. So now I can affect literally just that roof. I can change the color temperature if I want. And these are real layers, right? Like these are real layers that I can go in and I can change the opacity of that layer. So let's just say I turn up the exposure and do something wanky. And I can turn down the opacity of that layer. And that's mega powerful, right? On top of all of that, the styles and presets that you can get within Capture One that you can make your own, or you can buy some. Let's go to, let me do my grunge. I think I can do this in grunge. Not all of them work, depends on the settings that are in there. They're probably too extreme. Let me go to color. Okay, so I can right click on that and say.
Shortcuts you're using to apply those?
What's that?
Was that like a keyboard shortcut or something you were using to apply those styles?
No, you can't see them because they're behind all of Troy. They're all behind the thumbnails of all our faces on the right-hand side.
Oh, are they?
So they're,
okay.
they're all sitting behind there.
Right.
You got to move them over. Move it over.
I was like,
can you see them now?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, sorry. We had that problem before. Yeah, sorry.
It's like.
So these,
Stephen and I know what you're doing. We're going, oh yeah. Everyone else is going, what?
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. I don't see what you guys see. So these are some styles that I created, And so if you hover over them, you can kind of see what the differences are. This is just like presets in Lightroom, same thing.
Yeah.
But here's the brilliant thing. I can right click and say apply to new layer. Okay? It's not going to apply the vignette. So now I'll just turn off these 2 layers down here. So I've applied that to the whole image, right? But what if I don't want to apply it to the whole image? What if I only want to apply it to the shadows? So I can come in, create a luma range. I can clip, you know, most of the highlights. Let's see where it clips. Let's go about right there and say apply. So now I've only applied that effect in the shadows. So I can come back in, and we know that we created a layer here. And let's do this layer. And stop me if I'm going too fast, because I do that. Okay, so we grab just the sky, right?
Mm-hmm.
I am going to reset the white balance on that. So let's say, ooh, I like that sky right there, the 1950. I'm going to right click and I'm going to say apply to selected layer. Apply partially. So now I only applied it to that layer. So as you go through, and this is just going to take time for our brains to get used to it. And it took me a little bit of time to think, right? Like, oh, I want to make the clouds look bitchin', but I don't want to change the mountains. How do I do that? Well, normally we would have to go to Photoshop, output like 4 different versions and build them there. As long as we use Luma range or color, we don't have to do that here.
So Troy, in layer 1, where you've done that to the clouds, can you click on something where it tells you that you used a user preset style? Does it say anything?
No, it's not. I don't know.
Because it'd be nice if you say, oh, I really like that, you know, 1953. I like that for clouds.
No, normally when you do it to the background, it tells you up here at the top, and you can actually clear that.
Yeah.
Troy, I'm wondering if you toggle the adjustments tab, if it shows it for that layer in the adjustments tab, maybe?
No.
Up at the top there, under layers, where it says adjustment. I'm not sure if that answers Peter's question or not. So.
No, that's it. You know what? That's a really good question. We'll have to ask David Grover when he comes on. That's beyond my level right there.
And yet you should tell everybody that you are going to let everybody have these for $49.95, because this is fantastic.
Well, Frederick has all these in the now he's store. Frederick has all these in the store. He can give us all codes and stuff.
Hammer time.
Yeah.
One of the other things too to keep in mind for your masks is that if you right click on that layer, you can hit refine mask. And then what that will do is, and it takes a little bit of time because it's doing a lot of math, but basically it looks at the edges where it has, you know, masked between the highlights and shadows, or maybe even physically. It can really improve some of those blend areas for you. But as you can see, it takes a little bit of processing.
Now,
time, so.
Troy, is this a little different to the dialog box down the bottom when you do the Lumen mask down the bottom? Because you were moving the little slider at the top. There's a little piece that attaches at the bottom of those little sliders in the little dialog box. And is that the same tool, Refine?
I don't know what you mean.
It's the feathering and like down the bottom when you do Luma range.
Oh, yeah. All right.
Down the bottom there.
So the radius and sensitivity?
Oh, no. So it says fall off. Okay. So is fall off different to sensitivity?
No, it
that's
impacts, I think,
the toe.
The slope of those edges, Peter. Like
the edges, like feathering.
Yeah.
What that is?
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
So if I pull it all the way back here, see how harsh that edge is up there?
Yep.
But if I feather it in.
Okay.
Yeah. And radius and sensitivity, just don't touch those.
I have to figure out what they do.
I can't really see what they do, and it must be something deeper than I use, and I honestly I find that I don't really need
questions like that. You guys should jot down to ask Grover on that when we get him on.
Yeah.
I never touch them either.
The top tier support, we'll need that. Yeah.
What the hell is that? Is that Frederick?
You need to bleach his skin.
Oh my God, he's turned into Helmsworth. Are you kidding me?
Don't you recognize him?
I've been working out.
He's always been.
You've changed. Yeah, you've changed color and you worked out. Holy
exactly,
shit.
and I have powers in a hammer.
So let me show you a cool black and white trick. Actually, we'll do it on this image right here. You have a dedicated black and white function. Okay, enable black and white. Very much like what you'll find in other applications. But I think this option was available in Capture One 12, which was really nice. If you see down here under the color editor, and you grab that little picker that I showed you earlier, and you bring that into your sky, it knows that you're picking blue. So I can change the density of the blue, I can change the density of the grass, and that's a really quick way of taking an image and creating separation. So I can say, okay, I want the yellows really bright, I want the greens really dark. Oop, I didn't grab green, did I? There we go. And jump. Oh, I'm on a layer with that one.
So that only works in color photo. It doesn't work, say, if you did an infrared.
It does work with an infrared.
Oh, it does?
You know that.
I'm just asking for Steve.
I figured.
So everybody can. Peter's a plant, and he's got a list of questions to keep at.
I'm up to a number 11. Let me check. 12.
Okay, yeah. So there we go. So this will work better now. So there's my yellow. I'm separating, and the same thing in the green. I can do that in the green.
Nice.
You can do this in Lightroom too. I just like the way that it works here. So, and this is the part where I'm just rambling on until somebody jumps in and gives me another.
All the lens profiles from Fujifilm for sharpening are embedded in Capture One now. Yep. So if you go over to the Lens Tool tab, Troy, and you can it will find your lens automatically for Fuji, and it will apply what their scientist thinks is the right amount of default sharpening, and then all the really nice Fujifilm film profiles, for example, the Acros, are there from Fujifilm, and they're the real factory ones that you can apply to raw files now.
One of the things that I know that I could configure Adobe to do this, but what I liked about Capture One out of the box is that if I'm always shooting in RAW, but I do sometimes will view in like Acros R or something, because sometimes just I even did that back in my Nikon days of I would shooting preview in black and white to help me compose. And what I like in Capture One is it leaves the simulation that I had selected there, and it doesn't default to the Adobe standard.
That's correct. That's correct.
Can you macro or brush preset at all?
What's that?
You macro or brush preset on Capture One.
A macro brush preset.
Yeah, so I'm tired of going and being a clicker and go click a certain preset to the brush. Like I have to constantly go and click that, and
no, and I know what you're
I
saying.
want to be able. I'm a gamer, so I want to be push F1 or all F1 and like just basically just go through. I don't have to sit there and think.
You can get a preset. You can change all the presets to the function to the brush, but what you can't have is you can't have like 5 saved brushes and say, this hotkey brings me to this type of brush. No. And maybe in the beta I haven't checked, or maybe in the upcoming versions, because one of the things that kills me is when I draw a radial gradient, that's the default. Okay, that's the default blend, and I think it's hideous. I want my default blend to look like that.
Yeah, because I want to be able to be more fluid. Like I have a couple brushes that I use, but I want to be able to like say switch, and then I can just drag it and then modify it to what I want, and just move on.
Nope.
And also the HSL, that's the big sticking point for me is I need the wording to have exactly how the color is, and I need the mouse over. If you guys can show me mouse over with the global tool, where it highlights that exact color, that I know I'm grabbing that color to desatch it or take luminance or more luminance on it.
It's not going to show you. So if you hover over it like this, it's not going to show you what color.
Yeah, because I have to see it. That's all part of it.
I just tap, and then there's my color wheel that I can see. So if I'm looking to grab something, I usually just tap around until I get the one that I want. I never have to pick a color that's that exacting. I'm always pretty good, but I understand what you're saying. There's really no way to see that. There is, however, up here at the top, if you see where I hover, you can see what your color values are. Unless there's a color picker, something somewhere that I'm not familiar with, that would be something that would be really good, again, to ask, like David Grover.
Yeah, because in Lightroom, if I have to do real estate and look at a wall and I can see the values are kind of equal, I know it's more close to white. But also it tells me if it's too warm or too cold, just going over, mouse over. But my main concern was the HSL. That's what like the sticking point in for me is.
Yeah, no, I don't know how to do that. I don't see any way to do that. And
I figured that's why I figured if maybe somebody knows in here or, with someone that it's essentially I want to have a Lightroom clone, but move it over and make it more macroable and customizable.
Yeah. I don't think one of the things I do feel within Capture One is I feel like it's more focused on perfecting one image at a time as opposed to like high speed production, which I think Lightroom probably has more facility for that. But I've learned to navigate those hurdles, and I feel that overall I'm getting a better production and a faster edit out of it. But that's just how each of us process and handle.
Troy, can you talk a little bit about I might have missed this at the beginning, but the ingest part of your Capture One workflow and how you move in from Photo Mechanic into a hierarchy and then into Capture One and how all that goes.
Yeah, we actually covered that in pretty extensively in the beginning.
So you're telling me I should watch the recording?
Yeah, you can watch the recording.
Okay.
Is that Chris?
Oh, it's Elon Musk.
In the
That's why I was laughing earlier.
just as a refresher, though, for sessions or in catalogs, I put my files where I want them to live. So, like my work files go under shoots by year. There's where the job lives. I leave the files there. If I'm going to browse to them in a session, you can literally just grab a folder, drag them and drop them in there, and it will browse to that folder for you in sessions. If it's a catalog, you can literally just import them from that location.
All you're doing is looking at what your function hierarchy is on your hard drive. That's all you're looking at.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
That's easy.
So you need to keep your files on your hard drive organized. That's going to be really, really critical.
I think one of the takeaways that I was trying to grok, I think I got it, is back in the Aperture and in some degrees Lightroom days, there was the whole concept of the catalog where, Lightroom would import or Aperture would import and build its own little internal proprietary database of your images. This guy is not doing that, right? It's looking at a folder hierarchy and showing you what's in that and not really creating anything internally. Is that fair, Troy?
There's two parts. There's the catalog, which is what we're looking at right now, and you have to import them. And see this little window, what it's doing over here out of sight, is it synchronizing and drawing all the previews and stuff for the folder that I'm in. That's a catalog, and it works just like Lightroom and just like what Aperture used to do. So yes, it ingests them, it draws all the previews, and it's possible for you to do searches across your catalog, all the files in your catalog. Sessions, however, does not do that. So Sessions is literally a browse to. I know why that was over there, wasn't it? So we could see it. Sessions is literally a browse to the folder, look at the files that are in that folder, and Capture One creates a subfolder in there with all your settings and cache files. So like under here.
So Troy, if you had sessions versus catalogs, if you're doing work on each different one, is the speed the same? Pretty much? The work file?
I find that sessions are faster because I think it doesn't have the overhead of the catalog to manage. I can't say that that's for sure. They're both really fast.
Yeah, it just feels faster.
And I think one thing that we have to keep in mind is that that phase one is Capture One, right? I don't know how they distinguish it as a company, but Capture One was designed to manage phase one files, which are 100 megapixel cameras. So the file sizes are massive. So it's designed to be speedy with big files. And that was the other thing that I found with Lightroom transferring over to Capture One was I was starting to shoot with, you know, a D850, which is a 50 megapixel-ish camera, and it was bogging down Lightroom because I was shooting in 14-bit, you know, uncompressed RAW. I wanted big files, and Lightroom was not happy with that. Capture One, I don't have that issue. So,
and one last question: when you're in the file and you've got that you know, that color wheel, I've actually stumbled on making that larger. So if it's larger, can you then get better detail or more
another
control?
one of those loaded. Thanks for
no, because I couldn't work. No, I couldn't. Oh. Hey,
No,
you didn't ask me to ask that. That's on my own.
That's a good question. I'll show you that in a second. One of the things is those color wheels that Peter's talking about are these guys right here for doing custom split toning, and I think it's really, really amazing, and I'll show you how those work here in a second. But I wanted to show you the skin tone option if anybody's doing portraits on a regular basis. And in this case, what we've got is there's a little bit of like a yellow tone underneath her chin right here. Let's see if I zoom in a little bit. Oh, you know what? I've already fixed it. There we go. So you can see there's a little bit of a warmer, different color tone under there, and I'll brighten this up just a bit so you can see that. So if I go to the color tool, the color editor under skin tone, grab the picker, choose the color that I wish most of her face to be, which is that one right there. Now when I slide the hue slider, it'll change those other tones. So you can see underneath her chin that color is dramatically improved, and I'll show you a variant of that. So let's reset the first one. I will bring the exposure back up because I don't want it darker.
Yeah, this is where Capture One really rocks.
Yeah. So you can see that skin tone on her neck, under her chin, parts of her face. That green went away. So I'm removing that color cast very quickly. The other way that you could do that, and I know that like Stephen does this a lot in his architectural work, and I realize now, Stephen, I need architectural images in here as samples because now I don't have them. But it works the same as you would go to Advanced, grab that color picker, select that color, and then I can slide the hue slider to move that color the direction that I want, or desaturate it. So, and I don't have a good color. Well, maybe like now that's going to overlap probably too much. I was going to say I could.
So why would you use Advanced as opposed to skin tone? Try.
Skin tone is very specific to the skin tone color range, and I've tried it on other colors and it doesn't work as well. Yeah. So I'm assuming a lot of it has to do with the math in the background. Advanced gives me a much deeper control. Like her dress, for example, has a tad bit of blue in it because that's shade light. Yep. I could come in here, grab that picker, select her dress. Let me get a better color pick. And then
I was talking more along for the skin tone, really.
Yeah.
So you use the skin tone,
yeah,
specifically to skin. Okay.
Yeah. But notice if I oversaturate it, that's the color I'm picking. So what I'm going to do, I'm literally just going to pull out that color. So now her dress looks beautiful in white, and I don't have to go in and desaturate it manually. So
nice. Yeah.
The other way that you would do that is under the here we go, under basic. Remember that little color picker? I would select where I want to go, and what is it? Option, I think. There, and I could desaturate it there as well, and then if I wanted to, I could make it a little bit brighter in that range. So very quick tools. So like what Kevin was speaking to with some of his tools. That he wants. Some of them aren't there, but others are better. So I think that's where we, as in our workflow, we have to figure that out. But what we can do is we can create floating windows. So if I go up to Window and I go to Create New Floating Window and I choose Color Balance. So this is just a good example. So if I go to Master,
hello,
Shadow. So now I have only a color balance.
Harrington, you're killing me, man. What's going on?
Is that Peter? No, that's Frederick.
That's not me. That's not me.
comment
I would automatically mute myself if I did that. It's Chris Hemsley.
No worries. No worries. Totally. That's the phrase of the
It's
day.
Chris Hemsley.
I
Mute
just
him.
muted him. I muted Frederick. I love it. Yay!
Hey! Great.
But what I could
Continue on.
I could go to Window. I could go and I could say create floating, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to create another color balance. And then this time I'm going to call it midtones. So now look, like they'll stack together. So now I have this floating palette, right? And I could go in and do it one more time. I could go to Window. I could go to create floating tool.
Shadows.
Color balance.
And the amazing thing is you can make those quite big.
Go to highlight. Yeah. Oh yeah, you can make them. You can grab the corners and you can make them bigger. And I could drag them over under your faces or whatever. I could put them anywhere. I could put them on another monitor. I have another monitor over here. And you could save this too. So like I have all these different workspaces. So you could save this workspace for say color grading. And if that's something that you do all the time, maybe these tools stay up all the time because now I can come in here, I got shadows, midtones, highlights, and I can come in and say, okay, I want the shadows to be a little bit more, you know, cyan. This is my saturation. This is my brightness for the shadows. So I can create a nice grading effect. Maybe I want the highlights to be a little bit warmer. And I'll create the saturation there. And maybe I want the highlights a little bit brighter. I'll come back up here, turn the shadows down. And there's my color grade. I'm done. And I like that. I like that a lot. I like these wheels. So I like working with those.
Yeah.
And you can also drag stuff out of these tabs. So if I want the color editor out, I can just drag it out and put it wherever I want, or I can put it back.
You can also organize the tool tabs to your preference by just
these top tabs,
option key or something like that.
Just know that you can.
I like having the color and the lens removed.
Yep. These all have I don't remember what it is. I changed all the shortcuts for all my tools, so I don't know what they are, but you can set a shortcut to go to each of these tabs.
Right.
And so these don't have to stay default either. You can say, well, I don't want a color editor under my editing tab. Or I don't want curves. I can just go click and say remove tool, and now it's not going to be there anymore. And then you might say, well, I want my curves under my information tab, like whatever. You can put it anywhere you want.
Yeah.
So if you want to add it, you right click, add tool, like this, and I'm going to add curve. So there's my curve. And then they have a little scrolly bit at the bottom. So let me just add another tool. Just randomly add, I don't know, keywords. So see,
you can also start from scratch with custom tool tabs.
You can. Yep. This number 1 is a custom tool tab. So if you right click, say add tool tab, you can just hit custom tool tab. Creates a number, and you literally go in there and say, what tool would I like? Ooh, I want the focus tool. And then, I want, whatever other tool. I want the grid tool. It just, whatever you want.
Hey, Troy, how does that focus tool work?
The focus tool is it's really close on your subject. It's the same thing basically as using.
Oh, that little magnifying glass? Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The magnifying glass.
Nice.
I don't know how you'd use some of this stuff in workflow, to be honest, because it's nothing that I do. So,
but it's good to know that you have it.
And for those that don't realize this, so let me open these images. You have what you're called your focus mask, and what that does is it goes through your images and it applies a green mask over your raw images. It doesn't work on JPEGs; it only works on RAW, of where it thinks that you're in focus. So like on this one, you can kind of see there's a little green by her eye. So if I go into that image, you can see that's where it thinks it's in focus. Her eyes are not tack sharp in this, by the way. So that's kind of...
The only thing I don't like about that little focus tool thing is it focuses everything on the grid. It'd be nice if you could just say, look, just focus one photo. That little grid thing. That's kind of weird, but there's a reason for it, I suppose.
As you go through your files, it's a good way to see.
Oh, okay. In grid form.
Yeah. So let's imagine that you have like 5 of this image that you're trying to call out.
Yeah.
Well, when you go through, you go, oh, well, that one's the one that's sharp, and they all look good. Well, I'm just going to pick that one because
it's sharp.
It's pretty sharp. Yeah.
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 Okay, got it. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and this is mostly my understanding is the way that the focus mask is calculated. It's based on data that's in the raw file. That's why it doesn't work on JPEGs or TIFFs.
Yep.
So
I think Aperture used to have that too.
I never used Aperture, so I don't know. I went from Bibble to Lightroom. You guys remember Bibble? Anybody remember Bibble?
Nope.
Yeah, it was a raw editor that was bought. They were bought out by Corel back in the day.
I photoed Aperture to Lightroom, and I have dabbled with other tools since, and I'm liking some of what I'm seeing.
Yeah.
Now, how did you get to like that grid view in the main area? Because that's one of those things where like in Lightroom, I love just being able to hit either E or G to get back to like loop, single image or grid view. And I never got around to figuring out what that shortcut was, whether it's a button or a key. And
so I mapped mine to G.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know what it is. So honestly, what you can do is go under Edit, go to Keyboard Shortcuts.
Yep.
And you get this little window right here. I created this TLM is my own personal keyboards, right?
Yep.
And so you have to make your own. But if you go in there and you do a search for like grid, it'll show you view grid. What keyboard shortcut do you want? Or
right.
Or if you want like a what is the gradient tool? So like a draw a linear gradient. That's E. A radial gradient is T.
Interesting.
And I changed all those so that they were in the right order on my keyboard when I'm editing.
Nice.
So I changed those. So it's very easy to find and it's very easy to change. And the nice thing is you're not changing the default set of tools that you can't ever undo. You literally have to create. You go to plus, create your own keyboard set.
Yeah.
And then it adopts the default, and then you apply. Then you go in and you change whatever you want. So
Troy, did you when you push F, you get the full screen like in Lightroom? Did you change that?
No, I think that's
standard. That's pretty
default.
good.
Yeah,
default. Yeah, that's good.
The one thing I did change is in Lightroom they call it virtual copies. In Capture One they call it a variant. So if I want to make a new variant, I made it the same keyboard shortcut, which is Command, and then I think it's like apostrophe.
Yeah.
So I changed that because I was so used to that.
You can also assign the number keys to give you the color tags that you want that match Lightroom.
Here's a summary from Creative Live.
Yeah, you can do that too.
Yeah, if you're used to like using 6, 7, 8, 9 or whatever for different color codes for tagging things, you can set it up the same way so that if you're migrating from Lightroom, you can use those keys.
And exporting them, I exported 87 files that were all color coded red into a folder on my desktop real quick. I mean, it was impressive. It was good.
So let me show you another quick tool.
Arches.
No, this is Valley of Fire.
Oh, cool.
That's a Luminar background.
Wow. Well, there's a picture of a guy standing there, Troy. What's that?
Yeah.
Look at that photo.
Yeah.
Man, that's done by a pro. He's got to be a great photographer taking that picture.
You had a good model. That's what it was. You just had a really good model.
Dressed in black.
Yeah. One of the things that happens, like when we use curves, is that normally when we bring down our curve, it increases saturation. And that's okay if you want it to do that. But a lot of times we don't want it to do that. A lot of times we've gotten our colors dialed in just perfect, and what we want to do is we just want to change the overall luminosity of the image. So what Capture One has is under Luma, under the curves, is if I change the curve now, you notice my saturation doesn't change, but the density of my image changes, which is very, very, very powerful. And again,
it's so good.
Yeah, again, remember that all these tools, except for the black and white currently, you can use on a layer. Black and whites don't work on layers, but everything else does. Curves, levels, clarity, it all works on layers. So if you came in and you did, like in this case, we did a quick advanced color selection. I'm going to select the sky. I'm going to say create layer mask from selection. Now I've created that layer mask of just the sky, right? But I'm going to create a new mask as well, and I'm going to copy it from layer 1, and then I'm going to invert it. So now layer 2 is just the rocks, right? So now if I wanted to, I can go in and I can say, well, layer 1, I really want to saturate, hang on, my tools are different places now. I really want to saturate that sky, right? That separates it from the rocks. But if I go to the rocks and I want to play with my curves a little bit, I can come down here and do the curves, whatever I want to do, and only affect the curves. I can change the clarity just on that. I can do my highlights. So you can kind of see the power, because the more complex your image gets, the more levels that you have an ability to control.
Yeah.
So I can come in here and I can go, because I'm selecting layer 1, I can come down in here, and now if I want, I can affect the color palette that's in the sky. So if I want the sky to be a little bit more cyan, I can move it into the green. So many things. Questions? How we doing, Amy?
Oh, my head's exploding.
Troy, I have a real quick question. I'm just like 2 days right now into Capture One, so a lot of it's brand new, but this is extremely helpful. But are there any of the features that you would do, say, with multiple photos, like focus stacking or stitching panoramas, or do you use other plugins for those kind of features?
You use other plugins for that. So, yeah. So what I would do is I would output this. I'd take my whole set of images, I would edit them, and then I would output them into, say, Photoshop or into a subfolder, and I would edit them there. Or, I would import them, say, like Affinity Photo to do a focus stack or something like that. So none of that stuff is built in here.
Got it. Okay, perfect.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Yeah, that's how I did, what did I do? Oh, yeah, that's how I did the focus stack of my watch. So I just took all of these images, exported them into a folder, and then imported them into Photoshop and just rendered them there.
Yep. Okay, great.
Yeah. Yeah, so.
Amy, no matter how hard your head's exploding, keep doing it, because you will get on top of it. It just takes time playing it. And at the end, you'll go, oh, this is really good. I wish I had done it earlier. So just keep going. Keep going.
Let me show you a little infrared-y thing in here. And this is also a huge benefit, I think, for Capture One, not only just for editing infrared photos, but just kind of overall. Okay.
I know what that is.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So one of the challenges with Lightroom is Lightroom will not white balance 100%. So Lightroom will only white balance to a certain point, but then like in an image like this in Lightroom, you're still covered in that magenta color. And the only way to get around that is you got to create a custom DNG profile that pulls out more red. Well, that kind of sucks because it's not every image is exactly the same. So for those who have played a lot with infrared, you know what a pain in the ass that is. So in this case, I can just click here. You see there's a great amount of separation that I'm getting, right? So now when I go and I create a black and white image, I can come down here, grab my little tool, grab that color, and now I have that control over that color range, and now I have control over that color range. And it's literally just seconds worth of clicking around, and each image can be completely customized.
Can you do a channel swap?
You can do a channel swap. It's not as convenient in Capture One as it is in Lightroom. I don't know. Can you do a channel swap in Lightroom? You have to go to Photoshop for it.
Photoshop.
You can, and I'll show you very quickly how you would do it. Let me reset this image. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to white balance this, trying to get as much separation as possible. And then what you have to do is you go to your advanced, you're going to choose the color, okay, and then you're going to slide the hue. The hue only goes 30 degrees, select again, slide the hue again, select again, slide the hue again. Eventually they'll swap.
So that's not even really like as much a true channel swap as it is like the equivalent of a hue saturation layer in Photoshop.
It's not. It's really not a true saturation swap. And the thing is that if you do it in Photoshop, the swap is 100% swap. If you do it any other way, other than actually going in, the colors and desaturating, the reds and oversaturating the blues or whatever, it's not as strong. So.
And it won't let you go to that little color wheel in advance and just grab it and then take it all the way to the other side. You actually have to do it the hue in 30% segments.
Yeah, and I thought I thought I had saved. I thought I had saved a preset to do that, but I don't think I did. One of the things that I didn't show you was that if you choose here, let me go back here. Let me actually go into a. I was gonna say, let me grab a color image.
Yeah, I'm fine with going back into Photoshop to do the channel swap, because one of the things with Fuji is like the colors are just a little bit different than you'd see on most other converted cameras. And between that, as well as me messing with like filters as low as 550 nanometers, sometimes I'm even when I'm doing the channel swap, I'm messing with the green channel actually to sometimes out some of the,
and that's where Photoshop is really powerful, right? Is that you have that ability to grab those pixels and shift them completely outside of reality.
Yep.
And I think that, and I'm just sort of speaking for Capture One, they're engineering this to work within the raw file and what you're creating to get the most out of the image you captured. Yeah. And I appreciate that. I wish I could change the hue 180 degrees, but I'm okay.
I accept the fact that I'm doing things that like 0.01% of photographers do. So have to use a second tool, I'm fine with that.
Look, you never know. Down the road, they could change this. Ask Dave Grosvenor. I mean, they're adding to this all the time, doing stuff.
Yeah.
Good to know.
So right now I grab the purple background, and right down here it says select color range. And if I choose that, it desaturates everything I'm not selecting. I am not happy with the way that tool works, by the way. It really should show me a red mask or a green mask or something, because sometimes that doesn't work. But in this example, it works good. You can see that I've grabbed the purple. You do have an option right down here. There's a couple icons. The first one increases the slice of the pie, which is basically your brightness and saturation, right? The width of the pie is what color it's grabbing, which is nice. But if I can invert that, so now I've grabbed every color except for the one I chose. So that's really nice, because sometimes you have this dominant color that you want to exclude, or it's easier to mask, like what we did in our landscape, right? Like in this shot, it's a lot easier for me to grab the color of the sky and then invert it and then make my selection or my tweaks, as opposed to the other way around, right?
That's cool.
It's very cool. And it's very accurate too, because like I can grab that, you can see like I can grab that yellow, and then what I can do is I can tweak the sides to get the mask just so to pull out any red that I don't need. And yeah, it's pretty solid.
Right, yeah.
Nice.
So sometimes it's the littlest things that make you want to have it. I don't know if I have. I don't know if I have the image. I've shown this image like so many times. I should know right where it's at. It was this image. So this was an image that I took in Hawaii, and this was one of the things that made me decide that I'm gonna buy this. I bought Capture One when I was sitting in my Airbnb in Hawaii, because I was going out shooting and doing everything, editing it in Lightroom and then editing it in Capture One. I'd be like, ooh, Capture One's better. I'd show it to my daughter, who's a graphic designer. I'd be like, which one do you like? Oh, I like that one. Oh, that's Capture One. Okay. Margie, which one do you like? Oh, I like that one. Oh, that's Capture One. So dang, it's not just me. But what I did was I didn't like the sand in the water, so I selected it. So you can see now I've made a selection of just the sand. It's black and white there, right? And then I create a layer mask. So now if I go into the tools and I mask it, you can see that I'm doing it kind of sloppily, but I've selected just the sand. So now what I can do is I can go to my color wheel. I can come down. I would just do it in maybe like basic, right? So now I can grab that and I can shift the hue and the brightness to blend in better, so it doesn't stand out as much. And
nice.
That you just can't do elsewhere. Now you could add a Luma mask on top of that, and you could keep building with it, and you could keep making it, you know, stronger and stronger and stronger. But that just gives you another sense. That's just another image that I really like. So
I think one of the key takeaways, Troy, for me at least during this demo was looking at Capture One as like for one masterpiece, in Lightroom and or Luminar for batch processing of lots of stuff, right?
Maybe, but you know what? It's like any tool, you know. I do a lot of fabricating, I do a lot of building, and I've built a lot of stuff. I have a lot of tools, and there's a particular welder that I like for building mock-ups. There's a particular welder that I like for doing my finish work. There's a screwdriver that I use for digging weeds out of the yard. There's a screwdriver that I use when I'm tuning something, and it's a tool, right? It's just what tool fits your needs better.
Yeah.
Yep. Capture One fits my needs way better.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be an or, right? It could, like we always talk about, it can be an and. You're using these tools for this stuff over here, and then when you need to really do some awesome fine art portfolio stuff, you break out the big scalpel, like you said, right?
Yeah.
Here's another feature that I really like a lot. Like you'll notice that I don't get any draw screens that says, hey, we're drawing, or wait, what does Lightroom say at the bottom? It always says something when you go into an image. I don't have to do that in here. I can pop around with this loop view and very quickly see something that's in focus.
And Amy was asking the other day, how many layers can you have? And it's actually 16, Amy.
Oh, did you look it up?
Yeah.
That's correct.
Okay.
16 layers in Capture One is the max?
Yeah, but there's a way that what you do is you make another layer on top of that, and you do it in multiples of 16.
Okay.
16 as you go. Yep. Well, that's plenty. That's plenty.
Yeah.
That's a lot. Yeah.
For this kind of stuff, right? And then if you're going into Photoshop, then like, and you're a Renee Robin, you're doing 32 layers on a,
99. Yeah.
terabyte file or something.
Well, the workflow goal should be get your image as far as you can in the raw, because you have more data to draw from before you get it into Photoshop. And that way you're actually working less and you're working more efficiently. That's always been my goal, is to do this really efficiently.
Yeah. Cool.
You want to see how to make light rays in Lightroom? You can do it in Lightroom too.
Please.
Yeah. And then Frederick's going to give me nightmares after all of that shit that he's doing today.
I told him. Yeah.
Seriously, I can't stop looking at it. You're freaking me out.
Totally. All right, let me change it to something slightly less scary.
Yeah, something nice.
No. Wait, go back.
Hey,
be careful what you ask for, Eleption.
Hey, I'm not going to eat that Clorox. I don't care. I'm not eating the Clorox.
It's Clown Day. Lots of clowns.
It is Clown Day.
They're less scary.
Oh, man.
Which clown will kill you quicker?
Oh, God.
Mama will.
Oh, my God.
Can't wait to get back into therapy next week.
So,
Hey, Troy.
Yeah,
Just a quick question. How many years have you worked with Capture One?
I'm gonna say 3 years now.
Okay.
2 years.
How long did it take for you to feel like comfortable? Like it was your right, like your right hand. You just.
Let's see. When did I take this photo? 2017.
Oh wow.
That's when I bought it. Okay, so yeah,
3 years.
3 years.
Good.
I immediately, and so this is a two-part question answer. So I immediately started switching all of my fine art, my personal work over to Capture One immediately. Mm-hmm. So that happened right away. So I want to say maybe 3 months I was pretty comfortable with it. David Grover was my best friend. He fell asleep with me at night watching videos. I literally watched almost every video in the feed. And I got to give kudos to Capture One, those guys, and David. They have an amazing amount of education that they put out on the YouTube channel every couple weeks. Yeah. And I just ate that up. So I'm going to say like 3 months. My business stuff, my wedding work, took me longer because I had to figure out how Capture One worked in the back end and how to manage files and how to integrate my Lightroom workflow with Capture One without destroying my Lightroom files. So that took me longer because they couldn't answer that question because I couldn't articulate it in a text. It was complicated. But so that took experimentation. But to use the system, a couple months.
Yeah.
And I started from scratch. I mean, I didn't have anybody to answer questions for me so much so.
So Amy, I learned how to use this, and I'm actually getting pretty good at it. And I started when we did the lockdown, which is what, 5 weeks ago.
Mm-hmm.
You know, an hour a day, hour and a half a day, a couple of hours a day when I can, and you get good at it. Don't stop, just keep going. Don't let it intimidate you.
And you know, like I've told you guys before, you hit me up anytime. Like I'm fine. Like just hit me up and say, hey, this is driving me nuts. I don't get it. Let's just do it, right? Because that could save you hours and frustration trying to figure it out. And your software and your hardware should not be in your way.
And that's what a community is for, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Well, you're very nice to do this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
So
when you buy the software, I assume that there's annual upgrades or changes that they do.
They do. Yeah. They don't actually upgrade every year. I want to say it's like every 18 months to 24 months they do the upgrade. So they've raised the price since I bought in, but I think for me, I found that it was cheaper to buy it after 3 years than it was to do the subscription. I think that was the break point, was like 3 years of subscription versus buying. So now I'm winning versus subscription, because you can do subscription.
Do you have to pay for the upgrades that they make?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like $150
now. The major upgrades, like 11 to 12 to 20, you have to pay for those.
Yeah.
Well, the good news is you have a choice, okay? With Adobe, there is no choice. You either do the subscription or you get nothing.
Yep.
You don't have to pay for the updates as long as the version number is the same.
Right.
That's
right.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And they still support the older versions, because I run 12 on my laptop just to do demos of what the differences are, and I still get updates for 12. And there's a few tools that if it's not essential to you, you don't have to buy it. If you're on the subscription model, then you get it automatically. And I don't remember, you'd have to look at the website, but one of the options gives you 2 licenses, and the other version gives you 3 licenses. Or at least it used to. I don't remember.
What does a license give you, though? I mean, with one license, does it give you a certain number of computers that you can run it on?
Well, I guess I said that wrong.
That's better.
One way
That's better.
You can run it on 2 computers, and the other way you can run it on 3 computers.
What are you laughing at, Troy Miller? What's the matter with you?
So Frederick,
shit, if we knew the ex-president, we wouldn't be sitting here doing this Photoshop shit. I mean, Capture One stuff. We'd be out on your boat in Hawaii, Mr. President.
Frederick, question. I think when you buy the perpetual license, it gives you a license key that you can put on 2 computers, 2 different CPUs. And it may be that for the subscription, you can put it on 3. But I've been using Capture One since version 7. And I've always had it on my laptop and my standalone, like iMac computer without any issues. So.
All right, sun rays.
Like that. That's how you do a sun ray.
Well, start again.
Did everybody?
Totally missed it.
So Lightroom does this. Photoshop does this. So basically, if you select in one area, okay. See, there's my dot. I'm gonna turn up my my exposure so you can see it. If you hold down the Shift key and click somewhere else, it draws a line, right? It'll just keep drawing lines around it.
That's the brush, right?
Yeah, that's your brush.
Shift key.
Yep. So you can do all kinds of crazy shit with it.
Troy, what kind of supercomputer are you on? Because mine is not as fast as yours doing all that stuff.
I am on a, let's see, what is it? There. It's a 2017 iMac.
Yeah.
An i7.
Yeah.
4 gigs of RAM.
i7.
40.
Okay.
40 gigabyte though.
40 gigs of RAM. There you go. That's the
Yeah,
kicker
that's
right
it.
there. Oh, and that Radeon Pro 580 with 8 gigs is also the thing.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
No.
I will tell you, my laptop, my 16-inch MacBook Pro that's fully fluffed, runs circles around this tower. Runs circles around it.
Really?
Yeah. Oh,
But,
it's so
but how much
fast.
did that laptop cost you, Troy?
Only
$6 grand. $6 grand by the
Four.
time you were done.
495.
Yeah, but he's making $200,000 a year with that laptop, so it doesn't matter.
You are correct.
$4 grand. That's it. $4 grand. That was with the educational discount because Kira bought one too.
Yeah, because it's normally 6.
No, it's not. It's normally 45.
Is it the Mac Pro? Is that what? MacBook Pro?
MacBook Pro, yeah, 16-inch MacBook Pro. Yeah.
With the touch bar? The touch bar, right?
Yeah, touch bar, 2 terabyte SSD. It's got like 32 gigs of RAM, max video card.
Yeah.
And you don't have an external to eGPU, right?
Nope.
Huh. Interesting.
You know,
I
Frederick,
got the
it
Intel
runs
Core
mine on my
16 gig of
2050.
RAM. I'm just like, yeah, I'll see you at the finish line.
Exactly.
So light rays.
You
I'm
go
gonna
on
show
without me. I'll be there.
I'm going to show you light rays. We're going to do light rays.
Okay.
Light rays.
Light rays.
Watch.
Light rays.
So I made a small dot. Okay, and then I'm going to increase the size of the brush. Hold on the shift key. So there's my light ray. So now with brightness.
Nice. Nice.
Oh.
Mr. President, what do you think of that?
Well, I think it's actually amazing.
You sound like Nixon.
I don't have
my best Obama. I can't do it.
I don't have the sample, but I did it once where I did a light ray like so, and I did it like so, and you make it brighter.
Oh.
Like
and put
so.
some bats in it. Yep.
Then you do a Luma mask so that you don't get any of the shadows in there, so it looks like it's actually coming from that.
Oh wow!
And you do it, and I did it underneath the clouds. God, where is that image? I know what image it is.
That's pretty good.
That is.
Yeah. So then I can also change. Now I can change the warmth of that.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Wow.
Yeah, because I had it was the rain one that I did. Where's it at? I forgot about this image. I forgot that we did this. Oh, maybe here. Yeah, maybe it was here. So if we do a light ray, we're going to go really small. I'm going to come out to off frame. So I'll go there. So that's what I drew. Should have probably done a softer brush, so we'll do another one. I'm going to change my brush.
How do you get it to expand again like that when you're going out?
You change the size. So watch. So I'll do another one. So I'm going to make the brush small. I'm going to click here. So basically, I made a dot down here, right? And then I'm going to make the brush bigger.
Oh, I got it. Okay.
Hold down the shift key. Click out there, and you can see there's the ray.
Yeah.
So both of those on the same layer?
Yeah, those are on the same layer. It's better if you do them on separate layers so you have control. Yeah. But this will show you. This will give you an example. So I can make it warmer, but it looks like it's on top of everything, right?
Yeah.
So that's when you use the Luma range. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull down the shadows because I really want to see how it probably pull down the highlights. So it only hits the shadow part of the image.
Oh, cool. Wow.
There we go. Yeah, there it is. Now it's very subtle. So what it's doing is it's skipping the highlights like it would.
Yeah.
Right? Because the highlights would come through. So the right one is obviously very bad because I drew it too heavy and too thick. The left one is actually looking nicer because then it feels like the light is actually under the atmosphere. So, and
that's a great tip. Wow.
Yeah, that's very cool.
That's very cool.
Just there's so many of these. I've probably forgotten a bunch too. So what was I going to show you? Oh, light rays in Luminar. So this would be a good example of your round tripping. So we're going to edit in Photoshop. So edit in, edit with means it's going to take the settings that are coming out of Capture One and applying them, and then duplicating the file as a TIFF and moving it into Photoshop or wherever. If you simply say open with, it's simply going to open the file without any Capture One settings at all. So just think of it in the order: edits on top, opens on the bottom. So edit means it's going to prioritize Capture One stuff. So Luminar.
So and as a quick side note, Troy, if you edit with 2018 is different to 2019 and different to 2020 in Photoshop. The file looks a little different in each one. I don't know why.
I did not know that.
Well, we've got to play with it, find out why.
Yeah. So there's my...
The president's sleeping.
There's my sun rays.
The president is setting up an air conditioner in his 90-degree office right now.
He doesn't look like he's sweating at all. He looks very calm.
Which is why he has a graphic up, because he's sweating.
And that's why he's the president. He always looks calm.